Welcome everyone to Gen Z 360, the CEO series where we're talking about leadership, technology, and the future of work. I'm really excited today to be speaking to a new friend, but extremely experienced, extremely knowledgeable, and he's got an exciting book that's going to be launching. So yeah, please can you throughout the conversation take notes and get lots of questions. We are going to have a Q&A at the end. But Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Marco, and I'm really excited to be with you. I don't get excited about a lot of these events. It was very strange. I said to somebody the other day when we met, I said I don't get nervous. I don't get nervous meeting like CEOs and executives because I kind of eat those guys for I eat those people for breakfast. And then I said to my colleague, but this afternoon I'm meeting this guy Marco, and I've got butterflies in my stomach. So how does that reconcile? And I realized it's because I feel like I'm meeting an alien in terms of generational differences. So I'm just as excited as you are.
I think it's the suit. That's what it is. People always get nervous because when I wear this suit.
I must say you dress impeccably.
But just so people have a bit of a context around who you are, and besides from your incredible titles and that, what's an interesting fact about yourself?
Sure. I suppose my interesting fact is a bit of an oxymoron. I'm really good at people, but I really like dogs more. Okay. So I'm really good with people. I think people are wonderful, and I find massive value in influencing and impacting their lives for the better. But if you left me alone and to my own devices, I'd probably be living on a little farm in the Free State with a whole lot of dogs. So
amazing. And then your favorite holiday destination, maybe that you've been to or you're going to go to?
So look, I'm a big Cape Town fan. I've lived overseas before, so and I've traveled a lot. So my favorite holiday destination is actually Cape Town, if I want to go on a proper holiday. But if I want to go somewhere for 1 or 2 days, I like Dubai. I like hitting the mall and shopping, and I like the way the country smells. I like the way the people look. And it's civilized enough, but also it's different enough to give me a sense that I'm having a cultural experience.
Brilliant. And then
maybe one thing, maybe one thing, and this might also be the thing people don't know about me. The truth is, if I want to have the most fun, like Lagos, Nigeria.
No ways.
And I'm not joking with you. And if you speak to anyone that works for MTN, there is something cool about landing in Lagos, Nigeria's airport. You feel like you're in an Indiana Jones movie. And you're Indiana Jones. It's awesome. So Lagos, Nigeria, if I want adventure and excitement, is
that's super interesting. I was expecting like Seychelles or Maldives or that's like what an executive would say.
Lagos is awesome. And honestly, I've spoken to every CEO I've spoken to, every executive I've spoken to that's traveled to Lagos. They will tell you that it scared them a little bit, but it was like a dopamine high for them. It's just an incredible country with incredible people.
Okay, brilliant. And then just in terms of an official introduction, in terms of just maybe share the executive coaching and then obviously the role at MTN as well.
So the title I use first when I introduce myself is that of an executive coach. So I identify as an executive coach. I suppose that's in my blood, like an entrepreneur would have being an entrepreneur in their blood, and following that, they would then state what they're involved in. So being a coach is in my blood. I give expression to that through my role at MTN. I work for an incredibly diverse and vibrant organization. the MTN group, also the most valuable and special brand in Africa. Africa loves MTN because we were able to associate ourselves with the freedom of the country, with an ability to connect Africa, with an ability to bring financial inclusion and digital transformation to Africa. So I'm very yellow, and at the same time, I'm very much a coach at heart. And I'm just very privileged that I'm able to bring those two things together. My formal role at MTN is that of Global Talent Solutions, which means I look after the best people in our organization. So that's the title broadly.
Brilliant. And how would you describe leadership? What does leadership mean to you? What does the word mean to you?
So I mean, I suppose in one sense we're all leaders. Whether it's a father or a mother going home, they're leaders in a space. I've walked into gyms before, and I walk into the gym and I see guys there training and women training there, and clearly they're the leaders because they're an example, or they have an influence on the people around them. Classically, I obviously understand, because my niche clientele is your E and your E suite, your C suite, so your executive and your chief suite within organizations. But to me, a leader is an influencer. It's someone who takes a small action that has a multiplication effect, whatever that action is. Or somebody that's something, and that there's a multiplying effect. That to me is a leader.
Brilliant. And then, moving into your book, Leadership Interrupted, maybe just share, what the book's about, and how the hell did you decide, why did you decide to write a book, and why should people, what is it about?
So I'm incredibly excited about the book, Marco. So the publisher's been after me for a couple of years to write a book, but I thought to write a book, you've got to retire and you've got to go to the bush or the beach, and you've got to go through a whole traumatic experience. My publisher sat me down and very kindly said to me, Mark, focus on one topic and let's get this out quickly. I wrote Leadership Interrupted because I felt like this is a message that needed to get out now. I felt that it was a message that was needed right now, and I can't spend all of my time with everybody, but this is a message that I felt was worthwhile enough to spread widely. It traces back, or it goes back to the pandemic, and the pause that the pandemic pretty much plunged our whole world into. Regardless of what your opinions are about COVID or the reaction to COVID, the fact is that the whole world pushed pause for 2 or 3 years. I know enough, working intimately with leaders, to know that if you stop them for any period of time or any length of time, they naturally have the opportunity to reflect about their lives and to imagine the lives that they could have had, or to reflect on what they should be doing differently or could be doing differently. Because when leaders are working, they generally are in overwhelming roles. I've had many leaders say to me, or define their roles as an endless sense of obligation. They don't know what it is to go to bed at night and not feel that there's lots that hasn't been done and there's a lot that needs to be done. So Leadership Interrupted essentially speaks to the realization, and from a trauma perspective and from a post-traumatic stress perspective that we experience going through COVID, the fact that we are in a space of shared denial right now, and we're all pretending really well to live lives that are normal. We desperately want our lives to look like there's some sense of certainty, but the fact is that we are deeply broken and we are deeply traumatized. and someone's got to be able to talk about it. And I happen to be someone that has, I suppose, the credibility in that space, purely because that's my niche clientele. And it was important to articulate it so that we can move on, and we can move forward.
Yeah, and we chatted briefly to when we chatted more about this before the interview. What really stood out for me was the concept of revenge and how people are just rebelling against society, against their organizations, against their relationships, and then of course this post-traumatic stress and how people are so. We spoke about this. They're so subconsciously affected they don't even realize that they're in this state of trauma. So maybe just share a bit more about how you're seeing in organizations the sense of revenge, and then what should people be thinking about when it comes to post-traumatic stress and themselves and self-awareness in that way.
So what you said is really interesting. I mean, revenge is almost feels like a strange response. We go into a pandemic, which is the greatest shared traumatic experience of our lives, and all of a sudden we have trends. We have the great resignation, the quiet resignation, we have the great staggering, we have the anti-ambition movement, the lying down movement, revenge travel, revenge spending, revenge bedtime procrastination. And so the response to what people were going through, and they still are going through, is revenge. And it's a strange response because the revenge suggests that somebody has done us wrong. I mean, if you go and look up the word revenge in the dictionary, it suggests a response to feeling like someone has harmed you or someone has done you wrong. And it's indicative of the fact that as we emerged from working in office buildings 24 hours a day, and we started living more ecological and natural lifestyles, and when the chemistry in our brain started remapping and we started getting our dopamine thrills less from performance and more from natural experiences like our families and our relationships, we naturally started expressing revenge. And I say this to companies all the time. Companies can't fix the fact that people have been traumatized because it's not their fault. But companies can be blamed by people for traumatizing them. So a company can't heal you or fix you, but it's easy to put blame on a company. So organizations need to be particularly careful nowadays not to superimpose the processes they have on their people while their people are going through natural mourning processes, grieving processes, adult renewal cycle processes, transformation processes. And I think that's the theme of the book. And that's where the revenge comes from. It comes from, if you look at it neurologically, it comes from a desire to take ownership of your life again, to take control of your life again, and to create certainty in your life when a pandemic took all of that away. And the other part of revenge that's very real is going through those years of the pandemic changed and transformed us. And all of a sudden, then we had to come back into an environment that hadn't been changed and hadn't been transformed. So our talent changed completely.
Yeah.
And they didn't have a new home that accommodated them. Our talent changed. Our people started exercising. People started spending more time with their kids. People started connecting with loved ones. People started living in a more healthy way. It was a difficult transition, but it was a transition we made. And then as we came back into a normalized environment, that environment wasn't hospitable to us. And we realized that the structures and the systems that we operated in the workplace before COVID were actually inhumane. They
Yeah,
didn't accommodate our wellness. That's why we revenged.
absolutely. And one of the things we spoke about when it comes to specifically MTN's culture that I think the viewers can learn from is you said to me, if the CEO phones you and you put down the phone and say, you say you're busy with family or there's an emergency in terms of that, the culture at MTN is that family comes first and your friends come first and relationships come first. So I think is incredibly profound because if you look at the average company, they're going after the bottom line. And they think by pushing that onto the employees that they're going to perform better when actually it's the inverse. So the fact that you guys have been able to do that and are seeing the results and when it comes to from a retention point of view, I think is amazing. And when it comes to like practical strategies that you share with your executives, for those that are, I mean, we've got a lot of my networks professionals and executives, and there may be a few, executives that are watching this. What are some of the strategies that they can use for their teams in this new world, and your view on your new form of leadership?
So I think you're. So firstly, thank you for mentioning MTN because I think MTN serves as one of, I'm sure, many examples of organizations that got it right. MTN responded in a phenomenal way to their employees. The messaging that was consistent when we went into the formal lockdown and the pandemic was take care of yourself, take care of your family, and we'll do everything we can to help you accommodate that. Interestingly, the employees responded by working harder and being more committed and loyal than they've ever been. And something that I tell organizations today is loyalty is back. For a long time, we ruled loyalty out of the employee-employer relationship. We said, you cannot be loyal to your employer because the fact is your employer cannot be loyal to you. The pandemic changed that. The pandemic brought loyalty back into the equation. So the first thing I tell leaders when it comes to their people is right now, focus on your business, but don't disturb your people. Your business, you can have certainty about. Your business, you can ramp up. Your business, you can grow. In an MTN's case, we stayed true to a ramped up strategy. No problem with your business. But when it comes to your people, don't disturb your people, support your people. At MTN, in HR, in our group HR domain, we have a catchphrase that was coined by Paul Norman, our chief of HR, and he talks about hospitality grade HR. And hospitality grade HR holds at its core that the talent in an organization need to be treated as valued guests, that their contribution is voluntary. They've got the ability and the agency to go to another company. More than ever, you can work remotely, you can work globally, you can work nomadically, you can work in a diversified way. So the talent war is over. Talent won. And the companies that talent will flock to are the companies that allow employees to retain a sense of autonomy and choice and don't disturb their people.
Yeah.
Work needs to be done. Companies need to perform, but talent will flock to companies that allow them to have a sense of agency and choice.
Brilliant. And before we go to the last point in terms of just some practical strategies, if you are listening to this, please share a question. Mark charges 10,000 Rand an hour, so you're going to want to asking him a question now. So yeah, please comment one question that you have for Mark, and we'll get to the questions in a moment. So Mark, in terms of a practical strategy that you can maybe just quickly share with some leaders in organizations, what is one thing that you would share?
So, in terms of practical strategies for leaders, and some of these you would have heard before, and we have today the advantages of neuroscience, developmental psychology, construct theory. We have a lot of good thinking out there that allows us to predict or to craft good strategies. I think the first one is you need to communicate with your people more than ever. And I think you need to communicate with more modalities than you've ever communicated with. In other words, we're dealing with a hybrid workforce in a hybrid workplace. Previously, someone could just walk up to somebody's desk and see if they were available to have a quick chat. That's not available anymore. And we cannot resign ourselves to setting up meetings all the time. So communication needs to be increased, and leaders need to become available on multiple channels. In other words, leaders need to get used to getting WhatsApps or getting iMessages or getting and answering them. So communication needs to increase. The second thing is, I think the workplace needs to become a destination of choice. So people will choose to go to the office in the same way that they choose to go on holiday. That's essentially what's happening. It doesn't make sense to go to the office if all you're doing is sitting in a big room and everyone is on different team meetings or Zoom meeting calls to other people. Talent won't tolerate that anymore. In fact, that can harm a culture. There's value in bringing people together, but then if you're going to bring people together, leverage that time, blow their minds when you bring people together. A good example is today at MTN. We've got the Springboks visiting at MTN. The people must come. They must come, and we'll blow their faces off. Then they'll go away, and it was a worthwhile visit to the office. Yeah. Or if you're going to ask people to come into the office at certain times, obviously you need to give them flexibility. But when they do come in, be available for them. Don't, if you're the CEO or an executive, go and sit in meeting rooms, because then there's no reason for them to come. So workplaces need to become destinations of choice. People will choose to go to the office based on amenities that are available that they can't get at home, and based on connecting with people. And to connect with people, you have to create a certain environment in the office. So those would be two really important things. But probably the most important thing to say is we need to learn to re-ritualize and honor new rituals that people have created to survive the pandemic. Every one of us has done something to get through the trauma we've been exposed to. Yeah. For some people, it's driving your kid to school in the morning, where pre-pandemic you sent them in a carpool because you had to be at the office early. That's a new ritual that family has created. It's become special to them. For a company to impose on that family and say, no, we want you to be in at 8:00, it will take away the thing that is valuable and has become a ritual to that family. And people will resign nowadays if they have to sacrifice the sustaining and survival rituals that they've created. So culture is very much alive in organizations. It's not dead, but it doesn't live in a building anymore. It lives in homes, and it is enshrined in coffee shops. Yeah. And we need to recognize, and we need to honor those new rituals.
Well, it looks like the audience is being revengeful by not asking any questions, so they're going to have to deal with their post-traumatic stress. But I see Obi just mentions here, hello, is this going on? I'm unable to join, waiting for the program to start. Hi, it is on. We can see your comments. So if you have a question, I'm going to give the audience one more chance to just ask you a question about leadership, future of work, your next holiday to Cape Town. But I've got a final question. Before we end, when it comes to hybrid, there's such a big topic. Where do we do in person? Do we not? When it comes to Gen Z, we've seen that they preferably like to come into the office around 2 to 3 times a week. What have you seen work, and what are your thoughts on the overall hybrid approach?
So, firstly, let me say this. I think the conversation about a return to the office completely or the avoidance of the office completely is dangerously irrelevant. So at MTN, we put in a permanent work from any time, any place, anywhere policy, with the provision that we would like people to go into the office and a few times a week to connect. So I think hybrid is probably the way to go. I think complete virtual work, there's a problem neurologically. Our brains only release oxytocin when we're in proximity to people. Oxytocin is the chemical that our brains use to form relationships, build trust, create a sense of in-group preference or a sense that I belong to the tribe. So I think there must be some opportunity created for face-to-face and collaborative interaction with people in proximity. I think we've got to be very careful about mandating it at the same time. I heard a CEO, not a South African CEO, the other day say that he believed that the new model was virtual work and team away sessions. So create opportunities to get people to connect, trust each other, get to know each other personally, but then don't impose rules on people when it comes to the office. So I think it's going to be a both and it's going to be something that's going to evolve. I don't think we can predict the new normal. I think we've got to let the new normal evolve. And that's uncomfortable for CEOs, because CEOs feel the need to be directive and to give people a sense of certainty. It's a massive risk for them. They've got the power to, and they want to be able to say, I've got the answer in terms of how we work. I think an authentic and a relevant CEO is one that's able to be honest and say, we're in a time of transition. We're going through a time of post-trauma. I will not tell you that I know how we should be working, but I will become sensitive to the new rituals that get created. I'll be humble enough to say, I don't know, when people ask me what the future is going to look like and what normal looks like, because normal's broken. Normal was never right. We built office buildings based on the industrial area when we were sharing equipment to put cars together. So normal's been broken for a long time. But I think the leader that is relevant will be a leader that is super empathetic, super honest about not having all the answers, and that will give their people and themselves the permission to go through whatever process they're going through and slowly begin to honor those new rituals and enshrine them in terms of the way we work.
Absolutely. Well said. Yeah, thank you so much for your time. Where can people find when is the book officially launching in exclusive books? We will put the comment to your online publisher for people to go purchase now, but when is exclusively launching in exclusive books?
So the book is officially launching on the 9th of November. It'll be on all the global platforms and obviously available in the bookstores and airport bookstores. You can order a copy already if you go directly to the publisher's websites, which is www.kr.co.za, so Knowledge Resources. You can also, I mean, if you go to my LinkedIn feed, you can connect there, and it'll direct you to that site. So from the 9th of November, it'll be available on bookstores. You can also get the e-version online, and then it'll be available through all the regular channels through the course of November.
Brilliant. So that's Leadership Interrupted, the pause that changed everything. Incredible. So yeah, my name is Marco Stavro. If you have any questions about Gen Z or suggested guests or want to connect, please email me at marco@marcostavro.com. And thank you so much for listening. And thank you, Mark, for joining me.
Thanks, Marco. Absolute privilege.